Hey there. Welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 189. I'm Mike.
I'm Chad.
And on today's episode, the part of my collection that we're going to be talking about is just some more random stuff. We literally, 2 minutes ago, finished shooting episode 188, and I had intended to just kind of go through some of my miscellaneous stuff, because I have a whole bunch of stuff on the floor that I can't put away in my collection until I share it with you guys. And when I end up with like random stuff, it kind of gets pushed to the back and it sits around for a long time. So I intended to go through all my miscellaneous stuff with Chad, but we talked too much about a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, we decided to cut that one off. And now we're doing a new episode with some more random stuff. So do we want to get right into that, continue where we left off, or is there anything?
Well, I feel like it's been weeks since I haven't seen you. Yeah, let's get back into it.
All right. Now let's see here. Actually, one thing I'll talk about before we jump into this. Usually when I do these shows, I always have like my talky bit at the start, then we get into the reviews. So let's do a little bit of a talky bit. The other day, it's what now? June 5th today. So I think it was June 2nd that I went online and I saw that Hasbro was having a sale. And it said on their website, which is HasbroPulse.com. Now, if any of you guys, sorry if you're hearing about this deal for the first time, because I'm going to post this video. The sale will be over. Yeah. At this point in time on the 5th. It ends tomorrow. So I think you can still buy stuff on the 6th. So hopefully you knew about it and you got that stuff. But so I saw this deal and it said, if you spend $75, which is nothing to me, it's very easy to do. I'm like, of course I'm going to spend $75. You get 40% off. So I went to look at their website thinking there might be a few things I could grab. And there was a couple of things I wanted. But I was absolutely fucking heartbroken at the amount of stuff
you just bought.
They had. It was sickening. And I saw a lot of people, because I initially saw it on a Facebook post. And then and it keeps coming up on my newsfeed every day now, reminding me. And I look at the comments and people are trashing Hasbro, oh, thanks a lot. Shit's been out of stock forever. I logged on one day later and everything I wanted is already gone. And everybody's complaining. And I'm thinking, you whiners. Sure, there's some stuff that is sold out, but it's a 5-6 day sale. And I'm like, the amount of stuff that is there, and that is 40% off. I didn't want to do this because I knew it would make me cry. But there was some figure. So I messaged you, do you want me to get any toys for you? Because that way we can lump our shipping together. And I ordered 4 figures for myself, and you ordered 3. One of the figures you asked me to get you was Greedo from the Star Wars Black Series. Now, I have Greedo from the Star Wars Black Series. I'm looking at him right now. But I've had that figure for a few years. That came out a couple of years ago. I don't know why they still have it. I think it's repackaged now. I bought it back when it was in the box, but now it's part of the Legacy, whatever they call it. Now it's on a card. It might even have a bit of a different paint job, but it's essentially the same figure. I didn't count a figure like that because it's not something that I bought in the last 8-9 months.
Right.
I had that thing anyway. So seeing it on sale doesn't really faze me. But when it comes to items I have bought, some of these specifically from Hasbro Pulse's website, a lot of them I bought locally or from Big Bad Toy Store. But I spent $300 on Hasbro Pulse literally 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And all of those figures were part of this sale. So I could have saved 40% on that $300. Anyway, I did a little list.
Little.
Yeah. And there are, again, not including things like Greedo. Then there was a few things like that. There was some Stormtroopers. I'm not going to count that. There was 95 items that I've purchased probably in the last year. Some of this stuff I showed you guys in very recent videos. I bought that, the Iron Man, the Hydra Stomper armor. That thing was $80, and it's here on 40% off. Searcher, that big fiery demon guy from Thor Ragnarok, I bought him. He's, I want to say, a $65, $70 figure. 40% off. The Excalibur 3-pack that's got Captain Britain and everything, that's a $60. And again, those are $60 American, so it's more Canadian.
How much off is that now?
It's 40% off. And So like, just I won't bother reading this off, but like these are the characters, and these are the American prices. So it's like, boom, 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 boom. 95. These like let's just say 95 things, approximately $30 each.
Yeah.
A lot of them are like 23, 25 for the Marvel Legends, the Star Wars Black Series, but it's about $3,000 worth of stuff, and that would have been over $1,000 off. I think 100, like 1,200 off, and I almost couldn't sleep that night. I was so like, this is the problem with toy collecting is you don't know some of this stuff, if you don't buy it when you see it, like
you're never gonna see it again.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff I have in my collection, I literally saw it in the store once, or a lot of it I never saw, and I had to order it online in the States because we don't get stuff here in Canada. But yeah, if I did see something in the store, like the new wave of Transformers, you get them. Sometimes you see them for weeks on end, but sometimes you never see them again, and I end up regretting not buying things. And then sometimes stuff goes on sale, and then you're like, oh shit, I wish I waited for that. But I don't think I've ever experienced a sale that was such a kick in the nuts as this one, where like probably 75% of the things I've bought in the past year are now 40% off. Because most of the collecting I do is Hasbro properties, Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and they're all 40% off. I was devastated.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that, and my initial thoughts were, okay, so I'm not fully into a lot of those collections. I've just recently started getting back into Star Wars, so there were definitely quite a few figures that I would have even bought, but I just ended up going with two that you directly influenced me to buy, and Greedo, because I love Greedo. But, you know, to see the amount of stuff that's on a 40% discount, it's, wow, that's quite a sale.
I know, and there was more things I could have bought. Like, there were some Marvel Legends characters, like, say, the Eternals. I didn't buy many of the Eternal figures because I prefer comic-based versions, but we're probably never going to get comic-based versions of a lot of those characters. But they were never worth the $30 to buy in stores here in Canada. But seeing them there at 40% off, I was like, okay, well, that would make them about $13 American. It would still translate to probably about 17 or 18, I don't know, Canadian. But I was like, maybe for that price I can. But I was sort of just so depressed. I was like, I don't even want to buy these things. So there's probably things I'll probably regret that I didn't buy at this sale. Like, I only bought 4 figures, and they had hundreds of items for 40% off. But the sad thing is, almost anything I would have wanted, I have already bought. And so everything that was left with things that I was like, I kind of maybe want, but I was kind of made peace with not owning them. So it was hard to get excited about buying a bunch of stuff I was not excited about.
Yeah. So you spite bought.
Yeah, I bought a few things. And if you would, honestly, I messaged you because I put them in my cart, and then I hummed and hawed, and I started deleting stuff out of my cart. And I was like, well, do I need any of this stuff? And I called my brother, and I called you. Kind of say, like, is there anything you guys want? And if you guys both said no, I probably would have been like, well, then I'm not getting anything. But my brother said no, and then you said, I'll take a couple of things. And I was like, well, if you're getting a couple of things, then I'll get a couple of things. So that helped me justify buying a few things. But, man, that was a kick in the
It's such
nuts.
a kick in the sack, yeah.
Brutal. But I don't want to... That's a great deal, Hasbro. I'm glad that you, like... There should be more sales more often. These things are too expensive for the average person to buy. Like, if I could have not been in credit card debt, and I would have been sobbing about all the toys I didn't have this year. But like, oh, I didn't buy Sleepwalker. Oh, I didn't buy Ultra Magnus. But then the sale would have came by, and I could have bought everything. So... I don't know. I wish maybe I'd been more patient or whatever, but you never know. There were things I bought this year that weren't available on that sale, and, you know. But anyway, I just felt like talking about that a little bit, and fuck.
Hey, it's an open space.
Yeah.
It's a safe space.
Another thing that I kind of want to talk about is, so you know, I buy a lot of Super7's Ultimates figures. So I buy their reaction figures, which are the little 3 3/4, very simple. And then their Ultimate figures are the 6-inch deluxe, come in big fancy boxes and stuff. And I kind of had a little like epiphany on those two that I'm like, I think I need to really take the foot off the gas pedal on these, because what the Ultimates were before to me were like properties like Ninja Turtles, where I didn't need all the Ninja Turtles. I wanted the 4 turtles, and I wanted my 2 or 3 favorite characters all like Bebop and stuff. I did go a little deeper than I intended. I probably have about 10 of them, but that's all I need. I don't really care what characters they make going forward. I might get a Usagi Yojimbo if they make him, but that's it. That'd be the last one. And with like Conan, I buy some Conan Ultimates. But how many figures can they possibly make? You know, they've made like 3 Conans and a couple of side characters, which I didn't buy the side characters. Voltron, they made Voltron, and then that's it. You know, like. But now that they've started G.I. Joe and Transformers, which are brands that they can just go really deep and keep going, and I love those brands so much, I would just buy all of the figures. And that was kind of my mentality. There's 3 waves of G.I. Joe and 4 waves of Transformers. And I just pre-ordered the entire wave with every, like, in there.
Yeah.
And it kind of dawned on me. I was like, okay, am I really going to collect, if they do every G.I. Joe in my collection, I've got like 300 of them or something over there. Like, if they do every character, these things are $75 a piece. Like, it's Canadian. Like, they're $60, 55 or so American. But yeah, Canadian, it's about $75. And like, that's just too expensive for a line for me to go deep on. I can buy the odd one here and there. So my first wave of Transformers shipped. It's in the mail now. But literally at the last minute, I pre-ordered these things like a year ago. And so once I saw people online were starting to get them, I was like, oh, I bet Big Bad Toy Store is going to email me any second now, say we have them in stock. Mm-hmm. And then I would have been kind of stuck with them. And I was like, do I cancel them all? Do I cancel some? Do I cancel one? So they're going to be here soon, and that'll probably be my next video that I do after this one's published. So there were 4 figures in the wave. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all, but it was Optimus Prime.
I've seen pictures, but yeah, continue to explain for.
Yeah, so Optimus Prime, Starscream, but specifically the ghost of Starscream. So he's made of translucent, sparkly plastic, and then Bombshell, who's one of the Insecticons, who I really like, but it's based off Bombshell version 2, which is not the version I liked. It's not the one I had as a kid. It's not the look he had in the cartoon. It's a weirder, less cool look. And then Bunzaitron, which is a character I don't know. He came around after I stopped buying Transformer toys. He was never in the cartoons, the comic books. He's a nobody, essentially. So even when those toys were announced, I was like, oh, who do I buy from this? Like, Optimus and Starscream feel like been there, done that. I have so many of them in my collection. And then the other 2 guys are like, who are these guys? Like, it seemed like kind of a terrible selection almost. Like, I understood why Optimus was in there, but I was like, I don't know. Anyway, I hummed and hawed and I just said, I'll buy all of them. So I don't care. But at the last minute, I canceled my Starscream. Because as much as like a translucent Starscream might be kind of fun, they're probably going to redo him in solid colors later, and then if they do the other Seekers, I'm like, well, am I going to get the other Jets? Am I going to have 2 Starscreams, or am I not going to buy the regular Starscream and I'll have this weird glow-in-the-darky, like, sparkly Starscream? So I pulled the trigger on him, or canceled him, and I'm wondering if I should have done the same for some of the others. I've watched reviews of them online, and I've got issues with all of them because some of these reviewers do. Like, for example, the Optimus, his arm's only been, like, this far. Like, he can't do...
See, that would be a deal breaker.
Yeah, like, these things are supposed to be ultimate versions, but, like, they don't move properly. The other 2 guys, they've got big shoulder pads, and their arms, I guess, only come up like this. Like, you can't lift them arms out like this. And it's like, man, you know, for the amount of money I'm paying for this, and these things don't transform...
You expect the articulation.
Yeah, like, I understand with other Transformers, sometimes they can't move that well because they've got all these tires that you have to accommodate for a transformation. These toys don't transform. They're just sculpted to look like the characters in the cartoon. But you got to find a way. Like, even if the cartoon had big, spiky shoulder pads that in real world it's very hard to get them out of the way, you got to figure out a way to do it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm going to get 3 of these figures. I don't know how I'm going to feel about them, but depending on how I do feel about them, I'm going to probably start tearing out my pre-orders for Transformers, and I'm going to have to start looking at my G.I. Joe too. Because I really love the classified figures. Like, I've got great... like 6-inch versions of Destro, Flint, Lady J that I just got this past year, and now I've got new versions of them all on pre-order from Super7. And do I really need them? Like,
and they're nice figures.
They are. So that's another dilemma I'm going through. One
thing I did notice about the Ultimates, though, is our local comic stores have started to carry them too. Mm. So I noticed Giant Robot in Dartmouth has quite a few of the Turtles ones now. And the Comic Hunter in Moncton just posted they had some, but they're selling for more than 75 Canadian.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, comic shops, I understand they have to mark them up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just did my review of... My last episode was Mumra and Monkey. And that's another line where I was like... With Thundercats, I didn't grow up on that property. I don't really care about it that much. Mumra was an awesome figure. I maybe should have got Mumra and Lion-O, but I'm like, did I need Monkey? And like, he's a neat figure, but again, I don't really know much about the character. I don't care much about him. For $30, you can absolutely take a chance on him. But $75 for these characters, I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, I'm kind of rethinking my whole stance on Ultimates. And maybe with a brand like Thundercats, if I kind of want to dip my toes in there, I was like, maybe I should just say, maybe I'll just get the reaction figures and like leave the Ultimates alone. So anyway, I don't know. It's a little crisis. Going through a crisis. Anyway, let's talk about some figures. Now here's going to be a bit... I forgot to show you the cool packaging on the Phantom from my last episode. So if you watched my last episode where I was telling you about my Phantom figure, which is still right here because we just shot it a minute ago. But anyway, I intended to show you the packaging at the time. This is the other figure that's available right now, which is the female Phantom. Meh, I didn't feel any. She looks too spindly and stuff. Like, it's just...
Also, the face kind of looks the same.
Now, she does have an alternate head with her long blonde hair.
Okay.
But
I
still...
would probably display that head.
Yeah, but I'm just not familiar with the female Phantom. But one thing that's cool about these cards that Boss Fight Studio do is the blister card slides out, so you can open the package... And then it's resealable. So I can put him back in the packaging and you'd never really know I ever opened it in the first place, which is very cool. I appreciate that. But anyway, that's last episode stuff. Let's move on. So, in my last episode, I did tell you how I usually open stuff like that. The fact that they give you the opportunity to close it again is nice. Because this figure that I also just talked about in my last episode of Larry Hama on a G.I. Joe card, I'm keeping it sealed. That's probably the plan, so I might never open that. These ones here I'm torn on. So I got a couple of the Marvel Retro figures.
Oh.
So I got Venom. And I got the Green... And you take him.
Oh,
the Green Goblin.
Where'd you get these guys?
This from Strange Adventures. That one from Big Bad Toy Store. Although I feel I've seen... Have I seen that one somewhere now? It's a bit like that would be on Big Bad now. I had this guy pre-ordered on Big Bad. But then Strange Adventures just randomly posted him like on a new comic 2 weeks ago. They're like, Green Goblins. I'm like, oh, I'll take that.
Do you know how many they had?
They still had one last week when I was there last week of this one. I don't know if they had Venom, but they had Green Goblin. Anyway, I love these cards on these things. They're so bright and colorful. I don't know. You can't really see them. I think, Chad, if maybe you duck down, you'll see. I've got 3 of them behind Chad.
Get out of the way.
There we go. So you see I've got Spider-Man. You can't really probably see, but I've got Spider-Man, Electro, and the Silver Surfer carded. The figures are still in those cards. And I've got them pinned up there running along behind my Marvel Legends collection. So if I decide to add these guys, you'll just see these guys pinned up next to them, in coming weeks. But the thing, I really kind of want to open them. You can roll back into the shot. Okay? Because now that I'm collecting reaction figures like a lot, I've started opening up all my reaction figures, and I kind of just want to open these guys up to like play isn't the right word, but like just pose with them, use them in my Instagram photography,
enjoy them.
Because as much as I love the cards, I could still pin the card up without the figure inside. Or what I've done with a lot of my reaction figures is I slice the bubble,
which is smart,
so I can pop the figure out and then slide the figure back in. The only problem with keeping the bubbles on is, I have a lot of cards pinned up around the walls here. But there's a lot I don't. And then when I go to store them, if I keep the bubbles on the card, they take up so much more room than if they were just flat. I could keep these cards, like hundreds of them, and they'd take up no room. But yeah, with the bubbles... Anyway, I love both these characters. I'm really not going deep on this line, because I already collect the 6-inch Marvel Legends line.
Right.
But when I saw these little guys coming out, I thought, I'm only going to buy my absolute favorite characters. Now, the Green Goblin is... I know we talked about this in the last episode about favorite characters, although we didn't do hero-villain type of thing. So I said Spider-Man, Black Cat, Silver Surfer were my favorite Marvel characters, 2 of which I already have back there. Green Goblin is perhaps my favorite Marvel character ever. Because, like, I started collecting comic books when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
In 1986. And Green Goblin was already long dead in the comic books by then. But I was familiar with Spider-Man stuff because of the old cartoon that used to be on. And one of the earliest toys... This guy's all busted up now. But this is a toy I've had for... And you see, this is a Green Goblin here. And he didn't move. There's no articulation on this thing. You see his arm... That just recently broke. He was okay. That arm is like snapped. I still have the hand. And his head has been broken off for many, many years. I just had some stick tack holding it on. So yeah, this guy has definitely seen better days. He had a battery that went in his back. I still have the accessories, but basically when you put the battery in, he had a lantern on a little cord that went into this hand. So he held this like lantern, the light shone. And then he also had a little, you know how he wears a purse like he has there. So he had his little purse and it had like a double saw, so you battery operated, the saws would go back and forth like they were for cutting webs. Anyway, so I've had this figure. Let's see, is he dated? It's dated 1978 from Remco. So this thing here was made the same year I was made, or born at least. And I've had this thing for as long as I can remember. So I probably known what Green Goblin was before I even knew what Spider-Man was. I absolutely love this thing. And when I was a little kid, I remember, I think it was Mego that made these toys called Pocket Superheroes.
Yes.
And me and my brother, we both had Superman. He had Batman. I had Spider-Man. And I knew there was a Green Goblin. A 3 3/4. These things they moved. They had like 5 points of articulation. Their legs, their arms, and their head. And I wanted that Green Goblin like so bad. I never saw it. Never had it. I have had Green Goblin figures over the years. We talked about this not too long ago. We were messaging each other about Goblin figures. And I said this Green Goblin figure from the 90s Spider-Man, like Toy Biz line, I think is awesome. This is a great sculpt, great figure. And even though I have 2 versions of him in the current Marvel Legends line, this is the more recent one. That's the better one.
My favorite one, yeah.
I just don't like his eyes are too buggy.
They're weird.
His eyes are weird and too buggy. So I like this figure a lot, but when I display it in my collection, he actually came with a Norman Osborn head, like his unmasked head. Yeah. I display him with the Norman Osborn head, and I put this head in his hand like he's holding his helmet. And I like it better that way just because I don't love that face. It is growing on me. It's a little weird. It's growing on me over time. But I do have, from back when I collected the Marvel Universe figures, this is a little 3 3/4 inch Green Goblin. Which I thought for the longest time, well, this is as close as I'm ever going to get to owning that. Like
I do like that head sculpt.
That Mego, Pocket Superheroes figure. But when I see that figure, that is the one that like harkens back to that Pocket Superheroes figure that I've wanted for as long as I've been creating memories. And man, that just is nostalgic. It takes me right back to like my early love of Green Goblin. It's so classic looking. I absolutely love it. Like. That's a contender for best of the year, but how can I say that when I'm not going to open them? So I kind of feel like I have to open them and fiddle around with them.
And it's not a purse, by the way; it's a satchel. And Indiana Jones wears one.
I know. It's a European carry-all.
It's Seinfeld fans.
Yeah. Anyway, so lots of goblins, but I love that goblin.
That is a nice one. Yeah.
So this might be, even though when I started buying these things, I said I'm going to keep them carded so I can display them up there on the back because I had that white space I wanted to fill. But now that I've got a few of them, I'm like, I feel I got to open him, and if I open him, then I have to open them all. So, but I'm not going to do it yet.
Do you know what Amiibos are?
Amoebas?
Amiibos, like for the Nintendo release, like
no.
It's a line of their characters that started with the Wii U, and you could tap them on the controller and they would become part of the game.
Okay.
It's like all the Nintendo properties, but there's a lot of controversy around those with collecting out of box or not collecting out of box. Okay. And I opened one and then I just had to open them all. Couldn't do it. It was like probably 150 Amiibo.
Yeah. Seems like it's weird because a lot of people don't necessarily understand my action figure thing, but so many people collect Funko Pops. Like there's a whole industry on Funko Pops. It's kind of separate from action figures, but people are obsessed with keeping them in the boxes. Like so many people, like normies, like people that aren't really people into this, but they bought them because they thought they're going to be worth a fortune. And I see them on Facebook all the time trying to sell. Like I'm selling these at the value on the app, and they're trying to sell like $150 for like big bag Big Bang Theory pops and stuff, and I'm like, who wants, and like, but when I started buying pops, I opened them all up. I have about 100 of them open, and then I started keeping them boxed just because I ran out of room to display them, so I started stacking the boxes. And I didn't like that I had to keep them in boxes, but admittedly now it would be hard, even if all of a sudden I got a new room or did an extension on my home, because now I'm aware of like that value, and it's kind of in my head a little bit. Because I have some very valuable ones. Like if you do look at the apps, like I have the first Rocky one or the Green Lantern one. These things are worth a couple $100 on some of these things, but that's boxed. I don't know what somebody would ever. But again, I don't collect to resell. I don't resell anything. But knowing that Funko Pops have a collectability beyond the action figure collector market, I'm just like conscious of like, do I throw out these boxes or do I keep the boxes? But
as a collector, though, how gratifying is it to be able to take something out of the box and be like, yeah,
I love taking things out of the box.
It's like going to a candy store and being told you can't eat anything.
Yeah, which is one of the things with all these toys. I was talking to another guy on Instagram about this because we had the same issue. He posts these little, on my Instagram, I do little comic strips with my characters, and so does this guy. And we were both like, it sucks when you get a new toy. Back in the old days, I'd run home and I'd tear it open. But now, both of us have done this thing to ourselves where we're like, well, I have to wait till I come up with a joke. Because he does the joke with the character in the package, so he can't open it until he like takes photos and does the joke. I do the little joke outside the package, but I still have to take a photo of it in the pack, and I try and shoot my little cut screens of the toys in the package. So I have to like come home and like shoot some video of the packaging, take some photos of the packaging, and sometimes I'm not in the mood to do that, and so then the toy sits and waits. And yeah, it's very frustrating because I love tearing open toys. It's like my favorite thing to do. Anyway, so Green Goblin Venom. You like this guy?
Yeah, I do.
Now this is another one where like I like Venom. I have Venom's first appearance. Because again, I've been collecting Spider-Man comic books for 30 years straight or more, 35 years. And I loved Venom when he first came out, but I got kind of sick of him pretty quick because he kind of became a one-note character. Now they have kind of given him some more to do in recent years, so I'm kind of back on the Venom wagon. But for a while, I was a little uninterested in him. And that was kind of the years when he got like his crazy tongue, his slobbery, his all. I love how this one, it's not McFarlane artwork on there, but it's definitely a close like knockoff of kind of McFarlane art. And that's the first artist who ever drew Venom, co-created him. This is what I want my Venom to look like. Like I have multiple Venoms in my Marvel Legends collection. You don't have to move because I don't think they can see them, but this is the one I got like a year or two ago, which I was like super stoked about because this is the McFarlane Venom. Like he's big, he's muscular, he's got that smile, but he doesn't have a crazy tongue. He's got the that's how classic Venom should look, and that's what this gives me. It's a nice classic Venom. I did grab a couple here since I grabbed my old. I went through the bin to grab my old Green Goblins. So this is an old Venom, which still holds up pretty good. Like that's a pretty solid figure. I think this is one of the first Venom, if not the first Venom figure ever produced. This is from Toy Biz. And you see his arms don't bend because his... Actually, I don't know why.
He used to have something to...
Yeah, he had something, but his back, there's a hole on his back, and he filled him with goop.
Yeah.
And he could squirt ooze out of him because, Venom is kind of made of ooze. So you this black goop, you push the plunger in the back and it came out of his stomach. Anyway, it looks great. Like, again, it's got that kind of classic, big, bulky, tough guy. And that's... I don't like him when he's full of tendrils or when his tongue is too crazy. Like, for example, so from that Marvel Universe line, where this Goblin's from, here's my Venom. And I still like it. But this is Venom kind of like where he kind of like got a little extreme. He's got his tongue coming out. He's got all these tendrils coming off his back. He's kind of got like some purple metallic paint added to him. And he also notice his eyes. He's got the eyes within the eyes.
That's weird.
So like
that almost kind of looks like Spawn a little bit.
So yeah, I don't know if you guys can see it, but he's got these little red eyes inside of the big white kind of classic Venom eyes. Now that happened to him when there was a time when Eddie Brock lost the symbiote, and Mac Gargan, the Scorpion, took him over. And this is, so I would say, looking at this is intended to be the Mac Gargan version because he always had the eyes and that's kind of how you could distinguish him. So I forgive that since it's kind of the look of a specific era, certain time. So I like that figure just fine. But that's the only 3 3/4 inch Venom I have in my collection, and it doesn't hold a candle to the classic stylings of this guy. So this is another one that I'm just stoked to have, and I kind of want to open them up and
do it.
So I did it. Here is the Green Goblin outside of the packaging, and he is pretty great. I really do like this figure. So yeah, as per what you would expect with these little reaction style, Kenner style figures, he's got the 5 points for articulation, and that his legs go forward, backward, his arms forward, backward, head spins. Now with the Marvel figures, they actually have one additional point. You notice they spin at the wrist here. So they're actually 7 point of articulation figures, which adds a little something. Now he's got his satchel with him there, so that's cool. That's a separate piece. You could remove that if you wanted to, but I don't know why you would. And then of course he has his glider as well. It looks maybe a little small, but it should do the trick. Let's see. All right, he stands on there okay, but it does fit a little loose. Okay, I guess depending on how you get it on there. If you tuck him in there nice and tight, it seems to stay on okay. Oops. So yeah, cool figure. Okay, so here are a few more of my Goblin figures for comparison. So they all bring something different to the table. I really like how the Marvel Legend has that scaly chainmail look to them. Obviously the Marvel Legends are going to be more detailed. I really love the kind of very cartoony look of this figure, and I still think it's probably my favorite head sculpt of the lot of them. And yeah, these guys are both good in their own way, but this guy just didn't look as classic a Green Goblin to me. He looks a little more contemporary or stylized. I really like the kind of simplicity of this guy. Also the cartoon colors, he's much closer to this old Toy Biz one. So yeah, he's pretty great. I love him. So even though I opened my Green Goblin, he is the first of these Marvel Legends retro figures that I have opened. And as I said earlier, it's probably going to result in me opening all the rest of my figures. I don't know if I'm ready to pull the trigger on that just yet. So Venom, I am going to keep carded, but I thought I would give you a closer look at him. So you see, I really like the sculpting on those teeth and everything. He looks cool. And yeah, I don't know if I mentioned, but on the back of the packaging, you get a nice little bio and everything. So that's cool. Now, actually, me and Chad, we shot that video on Sunday, and it is now Thursday that I'm shooting these inserts. And yesterday, being Wednesday, was New Comic Book Day. So I went out to my local comic book store and did some shopping. Anyway, I picked up another figure. So here is Wolverine in his kind of like brown and orange outfit. And yeah, you can tell just by looking at him that he is shorter than the other figures, which I really like. You've got, you see a nice range in size from these guys. Like Venom is clearly bigger than Green Goblin, and Green Goblin is bigger than Wolverine. Wolverine's a little thicker because he's supposed to be kind of a short, tough dude. Not really, he wasn't really portrayed that way by Hugh Jackman, obviously, but in the comic books, he's always been kind of a short, thick little guy. So yeah, he's pretty cool. So who knows? I might open these guys up eventually. If I do, I don't know if I'll bother to bring them back for another video because you guys can pretty much see what you're getting right here anyway. But yeah, I love the cards on these guys. I love these figures. Yeah, really great stuff. Anyway, so there you go. Those are my new Marvel Legends retro figures. Okay, so I just have two more things to show you, and then I don't know, we can either wrap up and have this kind of be a short episode, or we can find other shit to rap about.
Sure.
So I recently got this guy.
Oh yes.
So this is the Dark Redeemer from the Todd McFarlane's Spawn line. So this guy, I've seen him around a bunch, and I passed on him the first bunch of times because I already bought this figure in a different color.
The blue and...
yeah, he's sitting right over there.
Yeah.
I could go grab him for comparison, but again, I'm probably going to insert cutaways throughout as I show you these figures. I'll do little close-ups, and so I'll do a side-by-side with him during that. But the Redeemer is a character that's been in Spawn since the early days. I think he first appeared maybe in the teens or the 20s. So the very early years, the 90s. So Redeemer, and when he first appeared, his name was actually Anti-Spawn, but I think by his second appearance, they call him the Redeemer. And he's kind of this, if you know anything about Spawn, Spawn is he got his powers from Hell, but he fights against the powers of Hell. He's kind of independent. But anyway, so the Hell is after him, but so is Heaven, and they send like angels after him. And so yeah, this is supposed to be like somebody empowered with Heaven's angel powers, I guess. Or at least the original Redeemer was. And he looked godly in that he was like all gold and blue and light and angel wings and all that sort of stuff, big white feathers. Now the Redeemer, kind of like the Spawn costume, it possesses different like human hosts.
Okay.
So he's not necessarily just like one guy. So there have been 3 or 4 Redeemers over the years. With the current Redeemer that's in the current comic books, I don't even know if we know who it is. I get a little spun around. It's hard for me to remember. There's so much Spawn.
Well, there's over 300 issues now. So
I have most of them. But yeah, I quit collecting Spawn for a couple of years, which leaves me with a 25-issue block or so that I'm missing. And now I feel like I do have to seek those out at some point. But I'm kind of waiting for the collector market to chill out a little bit, because comic book prices are
crazy right now.
So yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to collect these Spawn figures when they started coming back out. It's just like, we talked about this in the last episode, an episode we did a couple weeks ago, about McFarlane's scale. They're like 7 inches. It's kind of an awkward scale. It doesn't really size up with anything else in my collection. Like he's just a little too tall. Like he doesn't naturally look like he belongs with this guy. So this is just, I wasn't really going to go too deep. I thought I might buy Spawn and maybe 1 or 2 other characters. I have kind of bought more than I intended. I bought the Redeemer. And so then I saw Dark Redeemer came out, and I was like, well, I'm not going to buy this character just because they painted him black. So I passed on this thing. But I do read the Spawn comic books these days, and Dark Redeemer is a different character in the books. We don't know who he is. His identity is a mystery. So is the Redeemer. But as soon as I kind of realized, like, okay, this guy's a unique character, that's all the justification I need to say, okay, well, that's not just a repaint of, it's not just Redeemer in different clothes. It's a whole other guy. So even though it is identical, the figure, the sculpt didn't change anything. Even the sword is the same, everything. That's why I went out and bought this guy.
Right.
After the fact. That's all I need. Tell me it's a different guy, and you got me. So, and it's a cool figure.
It is.
He's a little awkward. He doesn't stand up very good because he's got heavy wings, and his joints are a little gimpy, and 1 peg hole in the stand. That little display base isn't really big enough to support this big old wingspan. But, yeah, anyway. You got anything to add on Redeemer?
No.
Okay, so here is Dark Redeemer outside of the packaging. So let's get up close and take a look at him. So he's got a really nice sculpt. And McFarlane Toys in the past were not known for their articulation, but they've gotten a lot better in recent years. I'm not going to go over all of it because I've already reviewed the other version of this figure in detail. But, yeah, it's got a good range of motion. It's more on par with what you get from a standard, what you would expect from an action figure, where old McFarlane toys, old Spawn toys used to be more like statues. This guy really does have a good range of movement, sometimes almost to his detriment. Like I mentioned, he's kind of hard to get to stand up because not only are his ankles, he's got that thin little kind of ball joint, which allows for like a lot of good range of motion, but it's not the most stable. Plus he's got articulated toes. And again, so it's just, he doesn't have a very strong base. So because of that, he sometimes can topple over. And that's why it would be nice if they gave us real display bases with, like, say, 2 pegs at the very least. And even if, not just the 2 pegs, but, like, maybe a wider base. Because that's just, it doesn't allow for him to really kind of spread his legs out like that. Like, if you could display him like that, he would probably be able to hold the weight of these wings. And speaking of the wings, like, they look great. Like, the sculpting on them is very realistic. That nice kind of black wash brings out all the detail. They are articulated, so you can kind of fold them back. You can raise them up, lower them. So good range of motion on them. You can see his sword. So nice sculpted detail, also with a nice black wash over it that brings out all the detail of the weapons. Yeah, you get that same kind of wash that brings out this detail on his chest armor and everything. Very cool. So here he is next to the other Redeemer figure that came out a couple of months ago. So you can see these are the same figure. They did not change anything, at least not as far as I can tell. All of the sculpting is the same. You know, all the details on the armor, all that stuff. You see the same thing on both figures. Wings are the same, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I like both of these figures. Like, I was pretty tempted to get the Dark Redeemer even when I thought it was just supposed to be this guy in a different paint scheme. But like I said, once I realized there were two characters, then it was pretty much guaranteed I was going to get both of these guys because they look really sharp in both colors. So there you go. That is your closer look at Dark Redeemer. So last thing is this dude.
Yeah, I like that.
So this is a Gundam figure. This is from Bandai's Gundam Universe line. And I don't know much of anything about Gundam.
I don't know anything aside from what my roommate has told me. He's big into the Gundam models and building them. And I did have a friend, I still have a friend, who watched the anime when we were younger.
And see, that's the thing. Like, this has been around since I think the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's one, like when I was a kid, I remember, you know, my local corner store and then later my Blockbuster, they had an anime section.
Mm-hmm.
And you got used to seeing like Akira, Ghost in the Shell. Like there was the kind of the standard anime that everybody had access to.
Macross Plus.
Yeah, but they were like, I don't remember ever seeing like Gundam stuff.
No.
So I didn't know this existed. And then in the 90s, it was like, so I'd stopped collecting toys, partly because I was growing up, but also because all the toy lines disappeared that I liked. Mm-hmm. Like, if G.I. Joe and Transformers was still going strong and carrying forward from when I was a childhood, I might have never let them go. I might have kind of kept it from my friends and did it on the down low. But I've always liked toys and I've always liked collecting. But it kind of worked out naturally that when I get to that certain age where kids probably do stop playing with toys, all the toys I liked went away, so it made it easier to move on. But around the time when I was creeping up on 20 years old and I had a job and I had disposable income, that's when they relaunched the original Star Wars movies in theaters. And with them came the new Power of the Force figures. So these were the first new Star Wars figures we were getting since I was a little kid. And I was like, yeah, I'll buy these. So I bought a ton of Star Wars figures. And they led right into the Phantom Menace. Yeah. And it took a couple of years before G.I. Joe, He-Man, Transformers, all that stuff came back. So I was into collecting toys in the 90s. And it was pretty much Star Wars and then McFarlane stuff were like the only game in town. And then all of a sudden I started seeing these Gundam figures popping up. And I have quite a few of them, but I'll grab these guys here. Again, you'll see these better when I do a cutaway. But so these are little like 3 3/4 inch figures, and they were from Bandai. They were affordable. They were probably like $10 or $12 back in the day. So it was very easy to amass a little army of them. And I just loved the aesthetic of them. Like I was a big Robotech fan.
Me too.
So that's kind of my experience with mechs. And
anything mech related, right?
So they look like they could have been on Robotech. And I just really like these things. I had a whole bunch of them. But my favorite one was this guy, Heavy Arms. I don't necessarily know why, but like he's got this big giant double cannon for a hand. He's got all these hidden compartments with like that open up. And he's got like missiles that fire out of his shoulders and out of his chest and all this sort of stuff. And I just love the color scheme of this guy. They did this. I have this one here too. This is Heavy Arms version 2. I don't like him as much, but it's the same kind of character. You can take a look at him if you want. But then I kind of fell off with Gundam around the time all the other stuff I liked better from my childhood came around. And plus these things kind of disappeared from toy stores anyway. So it kind of just naturally, it ran its course. And I hadn't thought much of it since, to be honest with you. I was so busy focusing on the nostalgia from my childhood. And then Gundam, I started seeing them around again, but it's all model kits where you have to buy the pieces, you have to snap them out of the little sprues or whatever.
Which is what my roommate does.
Yeah, you paint them and snap them together. And they essentially become action figures when you're all said and done. But they have that model kit feel to them. They feel delicate or a little brittle, and I'm just not into that. I don't want to have to do the work of building them, and I don't want that brittle feeling toy. And so it was only within the past year and maybe the last 2 years that Bandai has finally brought a line of 6-inch figures called Gundam Universe, and it's not a model kit. These are actual action figures, similar to those 3 3/4-inch ones I was collecting. And now enough time has passed, and now I'm nostalgic for like my 20s and stuff when I was collecting those things. And so I'm not going to buy all of them. Again, this is one of those things where I said, no, I'm not just going to go nuts.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy my favorites. So I have 3 of them at this point. This is my 4th. And I was so excited when I finally saw they were doing Heavy Arms, because if I were to only buy one, it would be this guy. And I think he translates, like, as much as I love this little figure, this guy, like, is so cool. Like, I like how the whites on him are so much crisper. This guy's kind of more of a
looks
gray.
grayish white.
Yeah, like he just looks so fresh. The colors just pop. He's got all the little compartments still open up. His chest opens and his shoulders still open. He's got the interchangeable hand. So I've got him the big Gatling gun on his hand, but he does have a hand. He's got a little blade that flips around on his other arm there, which you can tuck that back or flip it around. That's all really cool. Anyway, I love this guy. I don't know how many more Gundams I'm going to have in my future, but I think this guy's awesome, and he's definitely a contender for my year-end list as well.
It's such a solid toy. Do you think a lot of the nostalgia comes back from Transformers too? Like the robots we collected when we were younger? Or do you think it's independent?
They're separate to me in my mind. Like, I like Transformers, and I don't know, they're their own thing, like, because they're sentient beings. Whereas Gundams, even though I don't know anything about it, they're piloted. So those are just hollow mechs, So it's it's in a different category in my head. But I do really like the mech. The thing with Robotech is I loved that cartoon, and I loved the pilot. So as much as I thought the vehicles were cool, I loved the pilots inside. I don't know anything about the pilots inside of these things. The only thing I've ever seen of Gundam, so I never having watched the cartoon, I remember a DVD came out back when I was buying those things called Endless Waltz. Okay. So it was a show, but then Endless Waltz was like an hour-and-a-half movie that was kind of a spin-off of the show. Maybe it was the culmination, like kind of the conclusion of the show. Anyway, I watched it, and I watched it once, and then I traded that DVD into Blockbuster, and I was like, I couldn't get into it at all. And even though when I try and sell people on Robotech, and I tell them, like, it's a soap opera, there's, like, love stories, and there's a lot of, like, will they, won't they, like, there's a lot of, like, pop stars, like, little girly kind of K-pop type of music. But I saw it as a kid, and it left an impression on me. But I think I needed to see it as a kid, because Gundam Endless Waltz I felt the same kind of stuff, but I was like 20 and I was like, this is dumb. Yeah. And I just couldn't get into it at all. So, and I kind of like it better almost that way. Like with Gundam, I'm like, maybe it would ruin it. Maybe the guy that drives this thing is a total douchebag. Maybe it's a girl that pilots this thing. I don't know. I kind of just like the mystery of just like, I don't know what this is inside. His name's Heavy Arms. He's orange. That's about the extent of my knowledge, and I'm fine with that. I think he looks really cool. So that's that. Okay, so here is a closer look at Heavy Arms, and I think this guy's just a really cool figure. As I mentioned earlier, there's something about this color scheme which seems kind of unique. I don't know if I have any other characters in my collection with this white and orange, like the multiple shades of orange with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue. It's just a really nice color scheme, and I don't think I have it on any other toy in my collection other than my smaller version of Heavy Arms. So let's take a closer look at him. So I really like the detail in the face there. It's a little hard to see, but he's got kind of like reflective green metal paint on his eyes. I really like the head design for this guy. A lot of the Gundams have very similar head like styles, but they're all just like unique enough. And this guy, I just really love all these little components. That little thing on his chin, the spikes on his forehead, this thing on the top, the things on the side. Like, it all just works together to give a really cool design. Now, I will say these are a little scary. Like, this is the kind of toy that will forever have to be displayed on my shelf, because I could never risk throwing this guy in a box somewhere, because I would be terrified these things would all break off. They feel very delicate. Anyway, good range of motion on his head there. Great range of motion on this guy altogether. Like, he's very articulated, moves well. I mentioned this blade on his arm, so you can swing that back. So kind of tuck it away or swing it out. He did come with multiple hands. Like, you see, I've got him displayed with this big old Gatling gun. So you can, whoops. He also has that shield. So the shield is a separate piece. The gun, you can kind of wrestle that off. I forget how I got it in there now. Anyway, trust me. I promise that this gun comes off. I think there was a little peg or something. There we go. Alright, so once you get the gun off, you can give him another hand. He came with a couple of alternate hands, but I've already tucked them away somewhere. So yeah. And as I mentioned before, he's got all these little secret components. It's a little hard to get these open because I don't have any sort of fingernails or anything right now. But you open that up, and he's got some more kind of Gatling guns on his chest. Same thing on his shoulders. These things open up to reveal a couple more, I assume, weapons. Maybe those things launch missiles. Again, maybe if I'd watched the cartoon, I would understand the point of all that stuff. But consider his name is Heavy Arms. I assume that's supposed to be all more weapons hidden inside of him. So I love just the design of this guy from top to bottom. I love big old feet on my robots. It's just for one, not only does I think it look cool, because I really don't like when Transformers have like little rinky-dinky little feet. Like, I like a big, strong foot on my figures, and it also allows them to stand up nice and solid. Gives them a good, strong support base. So yeah, really great stuff. Like I said, good range of motion again on the legs, all that stuff. Cool detail all over. Really great stuff. Really great stuff. So just for comparison purposes, here's my little guy. So again, I thought this was a really great design too. All those elements that guy has, this guy manages to squeeze them in 3 3/4 inches. You know, all his little things open up as well. You see the same stuff. He's also got the blade that spins around. So yeah, very similar. Now this guy does have the double Gatling gun, whereas the new one only has the single. I don't know if maybe he has the option to do both, or maybe this one is screen accurate, or maybe that one is. I'm not sure. But yeah, he also has the detachable shield. So yeah, very, very similar. The key difference, besides the size, is really the coloring. If I bring these guys up side by side, you can see how this guy, I think you can anyway. I don't know if the camera's picking it up as much as it's obvious in person here. But this has kind of got a grayness to it, where this is like a really nice fresh white. Now, that looks great now. I prefer the stark white. But this figure is, 20 years old now, more than that. And I don't think he is, his color has changed at all. And that might be partly because they gave him this kind of off-white. That might actually serve to protect him some. I do worry that when you get figures with this really stark white color, like Storm Shadow from G.I. Joe, most of the Storm Shadows in the world are pretty yellow now, because white plastic tends to do that over time. So who knows, maybe in another 10 years or so, this guy's going to look all gross and weathered, and this guy will be holding up just fine. Now, since I dug him out, I might as well bring up my other Heavy Arms. So this is Heavy Arms 2. And, they've changed not just the colors, but they have changed some of the design elements as well. He still has the open-up chest, the open-up shoulders, all that sort of stuff. But this is an example of how easily it can go wrong. Like, I really don't like this figure very much. And I think the big part of it is his legs. Like, you'll notice he just seems to have much longer legs. Like, where you see where his knees kind of stop. I think he looks much more in proportion. Where this guy, his knees seem to come almost right up to his crotch. Now, some of that is maybe misleading because he has these knee pieces that kind of come up like that. But I think it just really throws his proportions right off. And that alone, besides the fact that his color scheme isn't as nice and original, it just kind of ruins the figure for me. So yeah, I really love this design. And I think it looks awesome in this 6-inch scale. And yeah, so those are all the miscellaneous toys.
Looks like you got a pretty good haul over the last couple days. or weeks.
Yeah, well, I think I called. I sent you a picture when I got those 2 big boxes from Big Bad Toy Store. This stuff isn't all from that, but some of it is. Like the Venom, the Heavy Arms, the Phantom that we talked about last episode. So yeah, those things all came in these big boxes. A lot of it was like my Mumra, who I reviewed a couple episodes ago. So yeah, I remember sending you this picture. I'm like, I just had these 2 gigantic boxes. And this is what I'm talking about with, like, I got them open, the mailman comes, I tear them open, and I'm like, look what I got, But I'm like, I can't open any of this stuff.
Yet.
Because I was working, like I work from home these days, so they arrived in the middle of the day. And even still, like, while I'm working, I could have ripped open a toy. Yeah. But I'm like, I don't have time to, like, go downstairs, take photos of the packaging, shoot a video of the packaging. And it's kind of frustrating that I'm excited and I can't open it. And it's just I've set the rules. Like, nobody cares. Like, you guys don't care if I don't show you a split screen of it in package. Like, I'm sure, like, whatever. Google it in the box. You'll find it. But I'm like, I feel compelled. Like,
well, it's your channel. You do
exactly.
what you want. It's your space.
Yeah, but that's what I do. I have to shoot it for you guys. I shoot it in the box. I hope you appreciate that I do. Because it's like this delayed gratification for me to, like, not be able to get it.
So out of the whole haul that you showed tonight, who was your favorite?
Tough call. Probably the Green Goblin. It's hard because I haven't held it in my hands yet. Right. But just my love of that character, that kind of retro feel of it. But yeah, there was a lot of good stuff. Like, this is what I talked about this before when I do my year-end best of lists. It's like, it's so hard because if I was like a completist and I said I'm going to buy every Marvel Legend that came out no matter what it is, at the end of the year I would have a handful of figures that I don't like, you know. And when you go to the movies, you don't know. A movie might suck. You buy a comic book,
might suck.
The comic book suck. You buy an album, the album might suck. So you end up, at the end of the year, you're trying to make best of lists, and you're like, well, I bought those 5 albums and I hated them, or I went and saw those movies and I expected to like them, but I didn't. With action figures, I only buy things I like. It's very rare that I end up with anything I don't like. The odd time might be when I'm trying to get a Build-A-Figure from Marvel Legend, and I maybe buy a Spider-Man that wasn't essential to me. But yeah, pretty much I look around this room, I like all these figures. Some of them are a little more of a letdown than I thought, but for the most part, I like all this stuff. So yeah, as hard as it is for me to pick a favorite out of this lot, it's really tough at the end of the year when I've got like 300 action figures.
I can only imagine.
I'm trying to pick my top 10 because there's no real stinkers in the whole lot. It's 300 good things, and I got to pick, the 10 best or whatever.
Did you hear that stinker? Real stinkers. Yeah, I mean, I remember watching your best of 2021 and how stressful I was when you were like eliminating figures, and I was impartial to the process. Like, there are a lot of solid figures you had, and to narrow it down to like 10.
Well, it's tough.
It was heartbreaking at some points. But.
Yeah, well, I'm already thinking of this year's list, and yeah, I don't know who the contenders are so far, because January is almost a wash because
partially Christmas.
Well, most of those figures I'm getting I would consider our 2021 figures. So then it's really not until February, March when I start getting 2022 figures. And there have been quite a few good ones already, and we're still only halfway through. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all I had. I can't remember how long we did a half hour, now we're getting another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're probably already at an hour.
50 minutes, yeah.
So I probably monopolize that. Again, I have all the toys. You don't. But anything else? Anything you want to talk about?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe next time I'll come a bit more prepared with some of my stuff. Although I haven't purchased many toys in the last couple weeks, aside from the 3 there from the Hasbro Plus sale.
Right.
But,
which they haven't shipped yet. Like, we ordered a couple days ago. But I imagine they're probably bombarded with sales right now.
Which will give me some time to pay back.
Yes. Yeah. So hopefully after the sale ends tomorrow, so hopefully we get a ship notification this week. And they seem pretty quick about shipping it, so we'll have it soon.
Maybe we can open those together.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so we'll do that. Actually, before I let you go, so in our last episode, because we shot one really long episode tonight, we've broken it up into 2 parts. We started the last one, I asked you all your favorite superheroes and all that sort of stuff. just a little bit more, get to know you. We talked about making best of lists. What's your favorite movie?
Of all time?
Of all time.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. Godfather 2.
Yeah, solid pick. Mine is The Crow.
Yes.
It's hard to, it's hard to pick favorites like this, but like I've loved The Crow. I anticipated that movie so much when it was coming out. It absolutely met all my expectations. I've watched it pretty much every year. That's the only movie I really do that with. Even Star Wars, I've seen a million times, but there's long stretches where I don't watch it. But The Crow, it's kind of where it's got it happens on Halloween in the movie, so it's a movie I watch like at Halloween, and yeah, it never disappoints.
A close second would be Ghostbusters.
Yep, another solid pick. Yeah, it's hard. Like so many movies I love, but for a long time, Crow and Tank Girl were two of my favorite movies.
Tank Girl, yes.
The Tank Girl's a movie I acknowledge is a bad movie, but you can love bad movies for whatever reason. Tank Girl and The Crow were both superhero, comic book movies anyway, that came out at a time when those things weren't really happening. Like we were getting like The Phantom and The Shadow, and say what you will about those movies, they were okay, but like that was kind of the era. We hadn't got Spider-Man and the X-Men yet, and I thought Crow and Tank Girl just did a really good job of being their own thing, and not they're pretty different from the comic books they were adapted from, but I still like them for what they are. And anyway, that's that. What about music-wise? Favorite band?
Oh, favorite band. Are we talking contemporary or all time?
All time.
Oh, Queen.
Yeah, good pick.
Contemporary, it's definitely Foo Fighters, and that stemmed from my love of Nirvana.
Yeah.
Favorite artist of all time is probably Billy Joel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's a random choice for anybody that knows me, but I love my Billy Joel. And
yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for favorite solo artist right off the top of my head. I've always said this is one of those things, but it's hard to Smashing Pumpkins were my favorite band in high school. High school were those kind of formative years when grunge was happening.
Yeah.
And I like the Smashing Pumpkins. Now, mind you, they've got a pretty extensive catalog out now, and they've got a lot of duds in their catalog. I still buy their albums that come out now, but are they the most consistent band? No, there's probably other bands I listen to that I like their albums more on a consistent level, but when Smashing Pumpkins are good, I think they're really good.
Yeah.
And they put out a couple of really solid albums in their peak, and they still do good stuff now. But yeah, so the Smashing Pumpkins are my favorite. But beyond
Weezer's on my list too. Weezer, love my Weezer.
I love Weezer too.
Their last couple albums though. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could go on. I could talk about Weezer forever because they're one of those I absolutely love those. But they had their highs those first two albums, and then it's when you say their last couple albums. I don't think because I actually like their last two albums, Van Weezer, and the orchestral acoustic one, Okay Human. Mm-hmm. I thought they were both pretty good, but they were coming off of some duds with the Black Album and Pacific Daydream, and then there was that cover album.
Yeah, the Teal album, I think.
That stuff was a little sketchy, but before that, I thought the White Album and Everything Will Be Alright in the End were two of their strongest albums in a long time. So yeah, it's peaks and valleys with those guys. But anyway, now we're getting way off topic. But all right, did you come up with your sign off?
No, I think I might switch it up every time until I find one. But okay. I've got one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, until next time. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. Do all that stuff. Please leave us comments below. How are you enjoying Chad as my co-host? Do you have questions for him? You've had 180 episodes to get to know me, but he's
I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah. So, please comment, like, subscribe. And until next time, ciao.
Auf Wiedersehen.
All right. See ya.